Welcome back. You're watching Cheche. Today's guests are the Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Dr. Hassan Wario, and the President of Athletics Kenya, retired Lieutenant General Jackson Tuwei. And the context of our conversation is doping, given that Kenya risks being absent from the Olympics in Brazil. And before the break, very frank talk from the CS about Athletics Kenya and its challenges. And you were making the point that you have tried to engage. But if we go forward, what can we expect to see from Athletics Kenya?
First of all, I think, as I said earlier on, the most important thing is education. And I want to repeat again, education. Because we have got quite a number of athletes who are young, upcoming, and they look at the senior athletes as their role models. And if there's any problem, they need to be told, first of all, what are these banned substances? Because some of them they don't understand. When you talk about a banned substance, what are the effects? What does it do? Where does it come from? Who actually administers this? And how do you avoid it? And I think this is one thing that we are taking very, very seriously, to see that at least the young athletes that are coming up are educated properly. They know how to express themselves when they go to a doctor, for example. Because if you go to a doctor as an athlete, you must first of all tell the doctor that you are an athlete. So that
and that's part of the WADA code that's coming in, that
yes.
Substances must be clearly labeled.
Yes.
Right. David, you had a particular interest in this.
But would earlier on I had asked whether most of athletes are caught unawares. The way you just live by ignorant, you're just going on about your thing, not knowing the substances which are banned. Or are there, have you established that actually some athletes are trying doping as a way of enhancing their performance? Because that I think happens in other countries, where athletes try deliberately to get to enhance their capabilities.
It has not come to our attention that there's been any deliberate attempt to get into this. There could be suspicions, but really those are not facts. And so I may say that these are things that come, unfortunately. Maybe they don't know, because some of the drugs, by the way, are the normal drugs that you would use for other ailments.
Yes.
And unless somebody gets to know and understand the effects and the problems that go with it, then they may be caught unawares because they didn't know. You remember, for example, look at things like kofta and small other things like piriton and so forth, which are used for normal ailments. But if an athlete uses the same thing without knowing, or for maybe the same ailments, and even others, they may be got unawares because they didn't know. So it has not come to our attention about anybody planning or wanting to do it deliberately.
There's another point on the same. I think, which is what we came across through the report and when we were doing some of our investigation, is that obviously the accidental users, like the boxer who went to box and he was found positive. He had caffeine in his blood, which is miraa, which he had chewed and he didn't know was going to be reflected as a drug. Then there's cannabis sativa, which is widely used in rugby, in football, in athletics.
Bangi.
Bangi, people just smoke, but it's also a prohibited drug. But what has come up recently, I think in a Kapsabet or somewhere, there are some doctors or quacks who are administering things to athletes. Whether the athletes know that what they're getting into or not is another question. But there's a sort of a growth of chemists which are notorious to giving athletes some probably steroids and medicine which like erythropoietin, which affects your blood count, so that you have more oxygen, you can run faster, than you have more endurance. So what we're worried about as government is, if this blossoms into a whole industry, then it will be very systemic in terms of its doping and so on and so on. And those are the cartels through the
medical. Are those drugs known? Because I mean, you say that one of the WADA regulations that now, for example, you're an athlete, you go to a doctor, you announce that you're an athlete. Would a doctor know all the full range of prohibited substances that could be in the prescriptions? I mean, that's
but you can
the
get
whole
that.
world.
It's a clinical way.
Yeah, and that's actually what the new code is asking, that all these substances be spelled out.
Yeah.
But is there a case for athletes going to, special doctors who are licensed to treat athletes, or is that going too far?
If it happens, then those are maybe people who may also call themselves athletes, but they are really not athletes, because we have printed the list of banned substances. They keep on changing. Remember, the researchers are they are ahead of everybody. By the way, as soon as you discover one, they go into the next one. And we don't produce these things in this country. They come from different parts of the world, and so sometimes somebody may be caught unawares because a new drug has come into the system without knowing. For example, now there's a new element called the masking tape, or the masking agent, which covers the actual drug that one has taken. So you think that you are taking one to cover another one, and so the researchers are very they are way ahead of everybody else, because this has become big business in the world, and therefore we keep on educating these people. It is also posted in the IAAF website. It is also posted in our website in Athletics Kenya. So we keep on telling the athletes, apart from what is printed, can you also visit the website, because they are now technically qualified. Can you visit the website and see which are the new ones, so that you can update yourself? So whenever you go to a doctor, if the doctor doesn't have that particular list, you can produce yours, and you can also refer to the website.
And even the
other thing is to work with pharmacy and poison board, which we are working with, and the medical practitioners, to ensure that some drugs are restricted in the circulation, because most of these drugs you can just buy them from the counter.
Okay.
Yeah, so some drugs needs to be restricted, but also education is the key, as the General has said. We need to make sure that most of our athletes, all of our athletes, are aware of this list.
Okay, here's what some of our viewers are saying. The Honorable CS should know that the goings-on at Athletics Kenya is just the tip of the iceberg of what goes on in many other federations in this country. The Handball Federation, for instance, has never held an AGM since the last election in 2013. They are concerned with self-preservation schemes. Mugo in Kitengela, what do all grey-haired people do in AK? They're very uninspiring and have taken a great sport and country to disrepute. But there is someone who has some empathy for your position. General, you've explained yourself well. On the other hand, the CS seems to be turning the discussion into an accusing forum. The buck stops with you, Waziri, and that's Odhiambo in Mombasa. And about education, programs with the Ministry of Education failed 2 years ago. Talent schools that UNICEF begun have died. It's sad when people in position talk on national TV without proper information. So the bulk of our viewers are unsympathetic, General, to your position. Take Abraham, who says, I agree with Wario, disband AK immediately. They've not been doing enough. How do you respond to that? Because it sounds like you don't have public confidence.
Well, there are always new developments that do come. Remember, we are in a federation. We take care of the athletes. The athletes are, competing both in the country and outside the country, because they are international athletes. And therefore, the doping that is done. If there is any country that has got athletes that have been doped more than anybody else, is Kenya. They have been doped everywhere, wherever they go to, because they compete in international events, in the national events, in the regional events, and they are always dope tested, always. When they are in the camp, when they are out of competition, when they are in competition, they are always they are always tested. And therefore, I think it is important to know that we also have quite a big number of athletes who are very good athletes, and when you look at the number of athletes that have been caught to have done this, it's quite a small compared to the number of athletes that we have got. And therefore, I think it's important to appreciate what the athletes have done.
There was a question asked about whether Kenya is targeted. As the president of AK, do you get that sense?
Yes, I think I do get that very clearly.
How so?
Yes,
you're being targeted unfairly.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, the reason?
Now, one reason, in fact, maybe say 2 or 3 reasons.
Yeah.
The first one is that, you see, when you win for the first time, Kenya has never won in the World Championships ever since the history of the World Championships. This time around in 2015 in Beijing, Kenya went and won, and particularly won in technical events where nobody in the world could think that Kenyans would come and win in those events. And so when you win unexpectedly like that, and everybody did not think that you are going to win, you are definitely targeted, and there's no doubt about it. Now we are going to the Olympics, and everybody may think that we want to go and do the same, and indeed we are going to do the same. However, that is one. Secondly, some people may feel that a lot of events are not organized in Africa, and indeed it is true. Most of the events are organized in Europe, in America, and maybe in Asia. And our athletes go there and they go and win. That, of course, may not be very comfortable to maybe some of those people, because people come to the field to come and see the best. So you cannot deny the best athlete to go and win in Europe. And when they win in Europe or any part of the world, then obviously some people may not feel very comfortable. Sponsors, for example, want the best to come there. And therefore, you cannot deny an athlete to go when he or she is in good shape and they are good top athletes. So we have won everywhere in the world. That is another thing. And of course, when you win, you get some benefits. You get paid, you get money. And again, maybe the people from that particular place are not comfortable that they are always losing money to people from outside. That is another.
So in the fact, then therefore it flows naturally that because you're winning, people will be more interested in you rather than targeting you. Wouldn't you look at it that way? That look, what is happening here? This country is beginning to win in areas that they're not expected to. So the interest would be natural rather than prejudicial.
No, not really. Look at let me say, for example, cross country, because we are in the season of cross country. When IAAF came up with the World Cross Country Championships, we went there for the first time 1983, and since that time Kenya has been winning the team event and sometimes the individual championship. And so at some stage about 4 or 5 years ago, they said, no, now the World Cross Country will no longer be held every year. It will now be held every 2 years, because they have seen we are always winning. and naturally, when you go everywhere, then it loses meaning according to them. You see, and this is what is happening. They introduced at some stage more events in the cross country and introduced 6 categories. Now it has been reduced to 4 because we were also winning those ones. So naturally, what do you expect? Okay. And so we are really being unfairly targeted.
CS, very quickly, do you think that Kenya is being unfairly singled out?
I think if you're number one, people expect a lot from you, and I think we need to do our work. We need to make sure that we seal all the loopholes, make sure we have the anti-doping agency up and running, and make sure we do things the right way. So yes, we're number one, and there will be so many people asking questions about that.
Okay, we're living on extra time now because our official time is over. But very quickly, before we end the show, you talked about competitions, most of them being held outside. But Kenya next year hosts the World Youth Athletics Championships, which will be the biggest event we've hosted to date. The Jubilee Manifesto talked about hosting bigger events in 2019. How are our preparations going?
Good. I think we presented the budget to the cabinet, which was passed. So we have a budget of 2 billion, which has been passed. The secretariat, the LOC, the local organizing committee, has been in place. Led by the chair is General Tuwei. They are now located in Kasarani, which we feel is a better space, is easy to secure.
Than Nyayo Stadium.
Than Nyayo, and it has more ample space for parking and for various things. Better training grounds, and also is next to KU, which we can use as a backdrop for training, for accommodation.
Warm-up tracks.
Warm-up tracks, and also we can use Safari Park as the secretariat for IAAF and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So I think the team is on the ground. We have about 9 departments, with each department having outlined its and costed out its activities. So they're ready to roll. They were just waiting for the money to start the process.
Are you disagreeing with the CS, or everything's under control?
No, that is okay.
Everything is under control. But the championships take place in July. We have elections in August. Is there a problem? People tend to stay away from Kenya when we decide to go to the elections.
It is a concern, but there is the LOC, the local organizing committee, but there's also a steering committee. The steering committee is made up of, I'm chairing the steering committee, it's made up of top security organs or top security people who will be ensuring that there will be ample security during that time.
And finally for you, this is just athletics, one sport, if that we've been talking about. We've not talked about football, rugby. One of the viewers was saying there are problems everywhere. Given that you have 70 sporting federations, is this a poison chalice? Does this get overwhelming?
It did at some time, but I think it's like we have so many animals in the game park, but we have the big 5. Okay. So even in sports we have the biggies, which is athletics, rugby, which is, I'm very happy it has cleaned up. Now you can see the momentum. Volleyball and football, and you've seen what has happened recently. We had one of the most successful elections in football.
It took you longer than you promised us, though. The last time you were in Cheche about a year ago.
There were so many intricacies, but the end justifies the means, and I've come back telling you the good news that we have. It's sorting itself out, and we hope the new leadership of football will keep the promise that the beautiful game will be beautiful again and again. So
what you're telling us then is that, to come back to doping in Kenya, that Kenya will comply with global standards on your watch, that you are not going to fail Kenyans? I have never failed Kenyans in any way, and I am, literally I wrote ADAC in my little notebook, and it's now a parastatal. I'm going flat out to give Kenyans the best. Okay. Panelists, before we go, we've been talking about doping and whether we will comply. But David, as you were pointing out, there's a broader issue of education awareness, the fact that, you have traditional substances that, may constitute doping. Are we doing enough to ensure that our athletes are compliant?
Obviously not, because if we were, then we would not have such a high number who have been already knocked out. So that simply shows that more work needs to be done. And I think more work needs to be done going into next year, because then we're going to have those agents prowling the country to catch the Manawares ahead of the Brazil. So AK really has to put its house in order and best foot forward.
Muteki?
We must also think about corruption. And as you say, you imagine that when you have young people, like your young blood, that you will be better. I think the best way is to organize institutions and organize checks and balances, so that even whether you are old men or young women and old women, institutions are there, checks and balances are there, so that when you have them, you have seen young men who come to politics and become rubbish. So I think institutions do matter.
Sir, your final thoughts. Are we doing enough to ensure that our athletes are compliant?
We are doing our level best. If our level best is not the best, then maybe there is room for improvement. And we are always open for improvement. We are going to improve wherever we think is not been done very well, and we hope for the best. I would like to ask the Kenyans, the sports lovers, the media, let us encourage our athletes. Let us support them. It is important that they are encouraged, they are recognized. When they came, for example, from Beijing, we were very happy that they were received very well, and everybody was happy, because that is the recognition that we need. So please let us support the athletes.
Okay, sir, your final thoughts. You say you're working very hard towards structural compliance with the anti-doping standards, but what about our athletes themselves?
Our athletes are our most important assets, and we respect them, we love them, and first and foremost, we need to care for them. So let them be assured that the government will do all that is possible to ensure the compliance with the code, but also to ensure their safety against this menace of dope.
Okay, our time is up. We thank our guests for their time on Cheche this morning. We had the Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Dr. Hassan Wario. We've had the President for Athletics Kenya, retired Lieutenant General Jackson Tuwei, and we also had the new head of the Anti-Doping Agency for Kenya, Jacta Rugut, and that was earlier in the show. We'd like to thank you for watching and engaging with us here on Cheche. We thank our panelists as well, Mutegin Jao and David Makali. My name is Udwa Kamimo. We'll see you next week.